Level 1. The halcon. You are 14. The radio is inside a plastic bimbo bread bag taped to the underside of a milk crate behind the store. When it clicks, you feel it before you hear it. A dry electric tap against the small of your back. You lift it, on the button once, say the plate number of the tsuru and put it back. That is the whole job. That is the entire day. The halcon, the falcon is the eyes of the plaza. The US. Drug Enforcement Administration's public assessments of Sinaloa operations describe them as a distributed lookout network of teenagers and kids covering intersections, toll booths, hotel lobbies, and the 2 roads into any town that matter. Nobody trained you. A cousin 2 years older handed you the radio, showed you which frequency, and told you 3 things. Don't drink, don't sleep, don't look at the car twice. By 4 in the afternoon, your feet ache. A patrol truck from the Guardia Nacional rolls past and you feel your stomach drop, and then you remember you are holding a Jarritos. You are 14. You are nothing. They do not even slow down. At 6, an older man in a clean white shirt walks up, does not look at you, and slides a folded 200 peso note under the empty bottle you set on the crate. He keeps walking. You keep standing. You do not touch the money for another hour. 200 pesos, roughly $10. For that, you learn this afternoon that a boy can disappear from a family without leaving the block. At night, lying on the floor mattress in your mother's back room, you close your eyes and the plates keep coming. Grey tsuru, white ram, green taxi. You cannot switch it off. You do not own the radio. You do not own the corner. You own the noticing. And once someone owns your noticing, they own the shape of your day. Your eyes are not yours anymore. Level 2. The puntero. You are 16. You are in the passenger seat of a black Ford Lobo. Half a kilometer ahead of 3 trucks you are not allowed to look at in the mirror. Highway 15 runs north from Culiacan toward Los Mochis, flat and hot and boring in a way that hides how much of the country moves through it. The driver next to you is 22 and has not spoken in 40 minutes. On the dashboard sits a Motorola handheld and a rosary. The puntero is the point. You go first. If there is a checkpoint, an ambush, a stalled truck, a stray patrol from SEDENA, you see it before the convoy does. You have one job and one rule. You never brake first. You slow. You drift. You cough into the radio. You do not touch the pedal in a way that shows up in a mirror behind you. On the 17th of October 2019, this same stretch of highway became something the country now calls the Culiacanazo. SEDENA's own after-action accounts describe how cartel cells choked the city in under an hour, blocking exits with burning trucks at the intersections that punteros had mapped for years. The men in this seat are the reason those roadblocks landed where they landed. You are training for a map that already exists. You pass a Pimex station. You cough once into the radio. 3 trucks behind you take the frontage road. At Guasave, a Guardia Nacional unit is parked in the median. You do not slow. You raise one hand from the wheel, adjust the mirror, take the exit as if you had always meant to. A kilometer down the service road, you sit in an OXO parking lot for 40 minutes, drinking a Boeing until your phone buzzes twice. Clear, you get back on the highway. That night, you are paid 4,000 pesos, cash, in an envelope with no name on it. Roughly $200. More than your mother earns in a week at the clinic where she cleans. You do not tell her. You leave the envelope under the mattress and lie on top of it. Being useful is the moment they start to count you. Before today, you were a boy who watched. Now you are a boy they can find. Level 3. The sicario razo. You are 18. The safe house is in Jesus Maria, half an hour outside Culiacan, at the end of a dirt road behind a lime orchard. The front room has 2 ceiling fans and no furniture. 6 men sleep here in rotation. A television plays a football match with the sound off. On the kitchen table, laid out on a folded towel, is an FX-05 Jurquatl assault rifle. The FX-05 was designed by and for the Mexican army. SEDENA's own weapons directorate developed it in the mid-2000s as the standard service rifle. Under Mexico's federal firearms and explosives law, possession of a military-grade rifle by a civilian carries penalties of up to 30 years, tightened in the 2012 reforms that criminalized trafficking of restricted arms across state lines. The rifle on this table is army issue. The cereal has been ground off with a Dremel. A man everyone calls Chapito walks in from the back. He is not the Chapito of the newspapers. Names repeat here the way saints do. He is 31, wears a plain grey polo, and carries a Nokia flip phone with 1 contact. He picks up the rifle, checks the chamber, hands it to you. Then he hands you the phone. When it rings, you answer. When it doesn't ring, you don't exist. You nod. You do not ask questions. Questions here are not refused. They are remembered. For a week, the phone does not ring. You clean the rifle. You eat beans and reheated tortillas. You learn the names of the other 5 men in the house by the sound of their footsteps in the dark. On the 8th night, the phone rings once, and Chapito is at the door before you have stood up. You are driven to a warehouse in Bachigualato. You do not fire the rifle. You stand in a doorway for 2 hours while other men do things you are told not to watch. At 3 in the morning, you are driven home. You sleep with the phone under your pillow. The rifle is not yours. It has never been yours. It was signed out to you the way a hospital signs out a scalpel. When the phone rings the second time, the rifle rings with it. A weapon and a leash are not opposites. At this level, they are the same object, held at different ends. Level 4, the Jefe de Sicarios. You are 22. 4 years in the doorway earned you a crew of 6. They are younger than you were when you started. You meet them in a rented house in the Colonia Guadalupe on a Tuesday afternoon, and none of them ask your last name. You do not offer it. The one who does the driving is called Beto. The one who does not speak is called Nothing. The order comes to you by voice note at 11 at night. 3 words, a place, a time, a name. You do not write it down. You listen to it twice and then delete it. The phone in your pocket is the 4th one you have owned this year. Numbers here have shorter lives than dogs. Your tactics did not come from nowhere. In 2008, the US State Department and Mexican prosecutors both documented the migration of former GAFE, the Grupo Aeromóvil de Fuerzas Especiales, the Army's Airborne Special Forces Unit, into cartel employment through the 1990 seconds, most notoriously seeding the founding cadre of Los Zetas. What those defectors sold and what every plaza in the country eventually bought was doctrine, small cell movement, radio discipline, convoy geometry. The way you brief your 6 men tonight, call signs, rally point, abort word, is a page from a manual the army did not know it had published. At 2 in the morning, your crew moves. You do not move with them. You sit in a stationary car 3 blocks away with the radio in your lap and the map of the city in your head. You hear one door, 2 voices. A pause. Pito's voice again, calmer than it should be. The rally point clears. You drive home alone. At 4, you are handed an envelope in the kitchen by a man you have seen twice in your life. 40,000 pesos, roughly $2,000. He does not thank you. He says only, El patrón sabe tu nombre. The patron knows your name. You should be proud. You are not. You are cold. You understand, standing in that kitchen with the fluorescent light shaking, that the money is not payment. It is interest. You have been given a debt disguised as a raise. The next time the voice note comes, you will not be able to refuse it. That is the promotion. Level 5, the Encargado de Plaza. You are 26. You meet the mayor's aide at a Sanborns on the Plaza in a mid-sized Sinaloan town, whose name you have already stopped saying out loud. He orders enchiladas suizas. You order coffee. He does not look at you when he speaks. He looks at the menu he has already memorized. The Encargado de Plaza runs the territory. Not the drugs, the silence. You decide which police commander gets a Christmas envelope and which one gets a phone call in the middle of the night. You decide which journalist gets an interview and which one gets a warning. You decide what a kilo of cocaine costs to move across your municipality and what a kilo of anything else costs to look away from. The economy under your hands has a name in the reporting. Derecho de piso. The Mexican think tank Mexico Evalúa has documented for years how extortion payments from local businesses, tortillerias, bars, avocado warehouses, funeral parlors form the base cash flow of plaza operations in states like Sinaloa, Michoacán, and Guerrero, often exceeding the plaza's revenue from drug transit itself. Every business on this plaza pays. Your job is to know what each one can pay without closing. Kill the town and you kill the tax. The aide slides a folded paper under the sugar caddy. 3 names. 2 police. 1 prosecutor. You read it, nod once, tear it into strips in your lap, and drop the strips into your coffee. He eats his enchiladas. You pay both bills. Before we go further, if you've made it this far, comment what you want next. Hit that like button right now and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. We upload every single day. Back on the sidewalk, you count. 412 businesses in this municipality. Roughly 2.1 million pesos a month in Piso, cleaned through a car wash and 2 tire shops. Add another 4 million from transit. Subtract salaries, envelopes, funerals. You keep the town breathing for about 6 million pesos a month, and you send half of that up the mountain. A town, it turns out, has a price. It is not what a town would ever agree to. It is what a town has already been paying without knowing the total. Level 6, the Contador. You are 29. The condominium in Zapopan has a view of a golf course you will never walk on On the dining table, 3 laptops, 4 cheap Android phones, a ledger book bound in red cloth, and a bowl of unpeeled mandarins. The rifle you carried at 18 is a decade behind you. The weapon on this table is a spreadsheet. The contador moves the money, not the cash itself. Cash is a problem for couriers, but the numbers that describe the cash after it has stopped being cash. In 2010, the United States Department of the Treasury capped the amount of physical US dollars that Mexican banks could repatriate to the American financial system in an effort to choke the return leg of narco dollars. The rule sounds bureaucratic. It reshaped the entire industry. It is why the peso exchange casa on the corner of Avenida Vallarta has 30 employees. It is why an avocado exporter in Michoacan suddenly needed a subsidiary in Panama. It is why you are here, at this table, at 10 in the morning on a Wednesday, with a mandarin in one hand and a calculator in the other. You run 3 courier routes today. One through Tijuana into a peso exchange casa in Otay Mesa. One through a small chain of hardware stores in Guadalajara, whose invoices you write yourself. One through a currency broker in the Zona Rosa in Mexico City, who is expecting an amount ending in a very specific digit so he knows the delivery is yours. You do not touch the money. You touch the columns. At noon, one of the phones rings. A courier in Nogales missed a checkpoint by 6 minutes. The bag is intact. The cover story is not. You reroute him through a stationery wholesaler in Hermosillo, whose owner owes a favor to a cousin of the patrón. You mark the loss at 400,000 pesos and add it to a column labeled Gastos Operativos. Operating expenses. By evening, the day balances. It always balances. You are not paid to make money. You are paid to make the money look like it was never there. The rifle at 18 could kill 1 man. The decimal point in this ledger can kill 100. Move it left. A cousin in Culiacan buys a new truck. Move it right. A cousin in Culiacan disappears in a warehouse on the edge of town, and the ledger notes the disappearance as reconciliación. A weapon becomes lighter as you rise. It never becomes less. Level 7. The lugarteniente. You are 34. The ranch sits an hour outside Badiraguato, in the folds of the Sierra Madre Occidental, at the end of a road that does not appear on Google Maps because the road does not want to. From the porch you can see 3 valleys. In 2 of them, you own the plaza. In the 3rd, you own the man who owns the plaza. You do not carry a phone. You never carry the same phone twice. When you need to speak, boy, one of the halcons you used to be, brings you a handset. You speak for less than 90 seconds, and the boy walks the handset back down the hill to a fire pit where 3 others are burned every week. Between 2020 and 2023, Mexican and US authorities dismantled a series of large-scale methamphetamine kitchens in the mountains of Sinaloa and Durango, some reported by SEDENA and the DEA as capable of producing several tons of product per cycle, using precursor chemicals routed in from ports on the Pacific. 3 of those kitchens were yours. Not in the sense that you touched them. You have not touched a chemical in your life. In the sense that a name written on a card in a drawer of an office in Culiacan said that this valley reported to you, and this one, and everything that came out of those valleys paid its tithe to a set of accounts you could not name from memory. Distance is the shape of your day. You wake at 6. You eat huevos rancheros made by a woman whose name you have never asked. You walk from the main house to the stable and back. You read a 2-page summary of the previous night, printed on paper, handed to you by a boy who then eats it in front of you. You approve 3 things. You veto 1. You do not raise your voice, because there is no one at this altitude to raise it at. At noon, a lawyer arrives from Mexico City in a helicopter. He stays for 40 minutes. He does not eat. When he leaves, the operational tempo of 2 states adjusts by a degree. You will feel in nothing but a slightly different number on a page in Zapan next Wednesday. Your daughter is 9. You have seen her 4 times this year. She calls you Tio when she visits, because that is what her mother has taught her to call the man who owns the ranch. Your wife lives in a city you no longer set foot in. You do not eat food you have not seen cooked. The paranoia is not paranoia. The Culiacanazo showed the country in one afternoon how thin the line is between a lugarteniente in a ranch house and a lugarteniente in the back of a Marine's Black Hawk. Every man at this rank has watched the footage. Every man at this rank sleeps in a different room in the same house each night. You have never been safer. You have never been more caught. Level 8, the consejero. You are 39. Breakfast is in a small hotel in Cosala, in the old colonial center, where the walls are painted a color that used to be pink. The patron sits opposite you. His plate has 1 boiled egg and a slice of papaya. Yours has coffee. Between you on the table, no phones, no papers, no list. The list is in your head. The consejero does not command. The consejero counsels. You do not have a plaza. You do not have a crew. You have the ear of the man who has everything, and in exchange for that ear, you have opinions that outlive the men they concern. The role has a long shadow in this country. When the old Guadalajara cartel fragmented in 1989, after the DEA's arrest of Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, the Mexican Federation of Trafficking Organizations reorganized, according to well-documented DEA and academic accounts, around a small number of senior figures who divided the plazas. Around each of those figures collected a set of quieter men. Cousins, lawyers, accountants, veterans of the plazas, men who had already survived long enough that survival was no longer their ambition. The consigliere role, borrowed loosely from the Sicilian and American mafias by Mexican journalists writing about Culiacan in the 990 seconds, is a translation, not a title. Here the word is consejero. It carries less romance and more paperwork. The patron cuts his egg into 4 pieces. He mentions, in the middle of a sentence about the weather, a name. You have known this name for 11 years. It belongs to a man who once drove you home from a warehouse in Bachigulato at 3 in the morning, when you were 18 and could not stop shaking. You do not answer immediately. You lift your coffee. You take 1 sip. You set the cup down. Then you nod once. Patron cuts his egg again. He talks about the rain in Durango. You talk about a cousin's daughter's quinceañera. 2 hours later, you are on the road back to Culiacan. 3 days later, the name is not on any list, in any office, in any state. You did not lift a phone. You did not sign a paper. You did not raise your voice. You tilted your chin. That was the entire event. Silence has different weights at different altitudes. At level 1, silence was what you owed the corner. At level 3, silence was what you were told to keep about a doorway. At level 5, silence was what the town paid you for. Here, at the 8th, silence is the currency itself. When it is yours, you do not spend it. You allocate it. A man in Culiacan will not be at his daughter's quinceañera in 2 months. He does not yet know this. Neither does she. You do. You finish your coffee. You walk out into the plaza. The bells of the church next door begin at 9, exactly as they have for 200 years, indifferent to your breakfast. Level 9 and level 10. The patron. You are 47. There is no ceremony. There is no ring. No kiss. No oath. One night in a house whose location you will not remember by morning, a man who was the patron is not the patron anymore, and by the next sunrise, the small handful of men who need to know already know. The country will not know for another year. The title itself, spoken aloud, is dangerous. The 1980 seconds, Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, a real documented figure, arrested by Mexican authorities in 1989, was called El Padrino, the Godfather, and the title collapsed with him. Every man since who has approached this seat has learned the lesson written into that arrest. A name that can be said in a courtroom is a name that can be sentenced. So the seat continues, and the title does not. The DEA's own indictments through the 2010 seconds repeatedly describe cartel leadership by pseudonym, by initial, by the phrase the principal, because the principals themselves stopped claiming the word. You are the man the state negotiates against. Not through diplomacy, through geography. 2 federal secretariats plan around what your absence would cost the country. A U.S. attorney's office in the Southern District of New York has your file open on a desk you will never sit at. A helicopter you have never seen keeps fuel reserved for a night that has not been chosen yet. You wake at 4. You walk to the porch. You do not turn on the light. And you understand, sitting in the dark with the Sierra beginning to show its shape against the sky, that you did not climb. You outlasted. Every man who stood on any of the steps between the corner in Culiacan and this porch is dead, imprisoned, or gone. Chapito, Beto, the driver from the Ford Lobo, the aide from the Sanborns, the lawyer with the helicopter, the patron before you, the consejero who once nodded across an egg. The daughter you saw 4 times a year is grown. Your mother's is buried under a name she chose for herself, not the one you carry. You have not arrived at the top. You are what is left at the top after the top emptied out. The porch faces east. From here, if you narrow your eyes, you can almost see the corner in Tierra Blanca where a boy of 14 once stood with a warm bottle of Jarritos and memorized a plate. It is the same room. The awning has grown. The stucco has become adobe. The bottle has become a cup of coffee. But the noticing, the constant involuntary noticing, is unchanged. The lamp in Badiraguato. The sky over Badiraguato is the color of a struck match. Thin orange along the ridge, everything below it still black. On the porch, a kerosene lamp has been burning since 3. The moths have stopped coming. In the yard, a child's bicycle lies on its side in the dirt, one pedal turned up. Beyond the gate, a black SUV idles, headlights off, the driver a shape you can only see because you know he is there. You lift the glass. You lean down, you blow out the lamp, you listen to the Sierra come awake around the house. A rooster, a goat, a truck downshifting on the road below. You do not go inside. You sit in the dark on a wooden chair and wait for the light to reach the yard, so that the bicycle, when it appears without you having done anything to bring it there. Rank ascend. Comment the next hierarchy. Stay well.